Hello and welcome. I just posted my monthly roundup and empties a few days ago, and I thought it might be fun to sit down and actually use a couple of the products that I mentioned in that video, especially because a couple of the products that I mentioned in this video I have never actually demoed for you here, so I figured it might be really fun to sit down and do a look centered around these products. We can continue chatting while I do my makeup, so as usual I'm going to just start with my eyeshadow base, which is the Inglot Eyeshadow Keeper, which I have really been loving so much. This is definitely a product I would consider purchasing and repurchasing because it just performs so well for me. I do still have a full size of the Urban Decay Primer Potion to go through after this one, so I will do that, but if I find that this truly beats the MAC and the Urban Decay Primer Potion, I will probably continue repurchasing it. It is slightly cheaper compared to the other two. I'm going to take a little bit of my Auric Glow Lust. Speaking of my Auric Glow Lust, I have a funny, not haha funny kind of story for you. As you guys know, I've been pretty loyal to Glow Lust since I purchased it 2 years ago. So much so that I decided to buy a backup already like almost a year ago at this point. I bought a backup like a really long time ago, which I haven't even started using yet because this thing has so much product. So unless you're slathering large amounts of it on the daily, you are going to own it for quite a few years, which probably was the idea. But anyway, so because I enjoy the product so much, I bought a backup, and at the time I also decided that I want to try a new shade. And I decided to go for a shade that I could hopefully either use as a mixer for Auric if I had a bit of a tan, or as a bronzer slash blush kind of product in the summer. And I bought the shade Citrine. And while Citrine is not like terrible, there's something about the tone of Citrine that just doesn't quite work for me. It is a little bit too deep for me to use as a highlighter or underneath my eyes. I have to mix it then with the shade that I own and I use daily, which is the shade Selenite. Or used as a bronzer, it is just a little bit too orange. I could probably use it as a blush, but frankly I would never think about that. So I decided that instead of trying to make fetch happen, I would just put it up for sale. And I had put it up for sale on Vinted a while back at the price of 35 euros, which I thought was a relatively reasonable price for a second-hand product, which is frankly almost untouched. I've used this product a few times and then I just put it back in a drawer. I cleaned it up because I decided that I'm going to sell it, and from that point onwards it has not been touched. So out of the 35 mils that are in there, I probably have barely used even half a mil. I'm going to take my beloved new Dior Skin Correct Concealer. You have no idea how happy I am that I have found this concealer, because it truly is my holy grail concealer. I rarely use the word holy grail because I think it's stupid, but when it comes to base products, especially something like concealer, for me personally, who has such a hard time finding a concealer that works for me, this is truly a holy grail. I adore this concealer. Anyway, going back to the Auric Glow Lust story. So I put it up for 35 euros, thinking that that is a relatively reasonable price to ask for a product which is practically new and cost a lot more for me to purchase originally, because aside from the cost of the actual product, which is quite high, there are also the additional costs of shipping and import taxes from Canada, and those costs are relevant for all of us here in Europe. And the people who purchase from my Vinted are basically only from Europe. So I thought 35 euros is kind of a good deal. And the product's just been sitting on my Vinted, to be honest, for quite a while, because I think Glow Lust is also not a particularly well-known brand. You would have to really be into makeup and into influencers to know about this brand. So I already didn't expect that it would sell like hot bread, because it's a very niche product, and I thought someone would come across it someday and be interested in it, and then I'll hear about it. I'm taking the Dior Backstage Powder, and then I finally got contacted by someone from the Netherlands a few days ago, last week actually, on Friday I want to say, and they wanted to purchase the product for 21 euros, which is significantly lower than what I want to sell the product for, but I'm not surprised because and we'll circle back to the whole Vinted experience after that, but I'm not surprised because people are just super fucking cheeky. And then I thought, you know what, instead of the product just sitting in my drawer getting old, not being used, I would rather sell it than be stubborn about it. So I figured, okay, you know, 21 euros is a lot lower than I was hoping for, but at least it is something, and most of all, the product will be out of my hands and hopefully into a loving new home. And I was like, okay, 21 euros sounds okay. And then the chick proceeds to very cheekily say 21 euros, but will you also pay for shipping? And at that point I was like, and this is exactly why I hate Vinted. This has always been my experience with Vinted. I put up something for sale for which I have paid a lot of money. I put it up for a relatively like reasonable price in my opinion. Then I get contacted by the absolute cheekiest farts out there. People who basically want me to, you know, wrap up the product, send it to them, and maybe include a freebie in there while I'm at it. I'm taking the Too Faced brow and fluff laminating wax. I obviously said absolutely not, but I remained on very friendly tone, and I suggested that she maybe purchase one of the new minis that Auric is releasing. I wasn't aware what the price of those minis is, so they're all still, you know, relatively expensive. Glow Lust remains an expensive product, so even in a travel size, which they've started offering as of recently, it is still, you know, relatively expensive if you consider all the extra costs included. So I suggested to her to purchase that, or maybe just wait until one of those minis appears on Vinted, in which case she can hopefully purchase it for a more acceptable price to her. But honestly, with the way she negotiates prices, she will be extremely lucky if someone sells her Glow Lust basically for free. I don't know whether you guys use the Vinted app, but that's basically always been my experience, especially when I'm trying to sell something. Now, I've purchased things from Vinted, and while I always also try to knock off a little bit of the price, I always try to be reasonable about it, especially because I have a lot of prior knowledge of how much things cost, how much they would cost if I would purchase them on sale. So I never really go much below the price that I could purchase the product new on sale from somewhere. Because of course, if that's the case, why would I just not do that? So obviously, if you're purchasing something, and on Vinted oftentimes it will say new with tags, but that's because Vinted doesn't really allow you to sell product that has been used, and you can get like flagged if you try to do that. I have gotten flagged once for trying to sell used Inglot eyeshadows on there. Just before we continue though, let me grab... what am I going to grab? I'm going to demo the Soft Red blush on my cheeks, so obviously we have to go in with the Gucci bronzer as well. Mine is in the shade 03. That is not to say that a lot of the times you will not actually be purchasing new product, but more often than not, when people sell something on Vinted, especially makeup, it probably has been used even if it says new with tags. That's just, you have to put that because of the Vinted regulations. But because of that, I also feel like, you know, if I can get something new on sale for this price, then I think I'm allowed to negotiate a slightly lower price, but like a slightly lower price. And if we're dealing with something that is, you know, already sold for a very good price, and it is a precious item, for example, when I was buying that Pat McGrath kit with the black shade and the silvery shade and the brown, ultra suede brown. All of a sudden I had a brain fart and I forgot how it's called. But when I was buying the ultra suede brown kit, granted it had already been quite a few years old, and even though it was new, she was selling it for a really good price. She was selling it quite a bit lower than the price that the kit was originally sold for, which I appreciate, because obviously if something has been sitting in your drawer for 5 years, even if it's sealed, yeah, it's gotten a little bit older. I don't want to pay the original price for it because that's no longer, you know, relevant. And for blush, I am so excited. We're going to do my new blush in the shade Soft Red, which is one of their new summer release blushes. I think the core line has about 6 blushes, and they recently added 3 more shades to that core line for the summer, and this is one of them. And when I saw the pictures of this, I just started to form drool in my mouth because it had the most beautiful, like, chili terracotta color to it. Now in real life it maybe leans a little bit more coral than it does like towards that terracotta chili tones, but I feel like on the cheek it actually looks a bit more like you expect it to look like. I don't think it looks like a coral. So I'm going to take my beloved Sonia G, what is this called? The Sonia G detail brush, which is my favorite brush to apply blush, and I'm actually going to try to go in with a light hand because I put quite a bit on my brush and this product is quite pigmented, so I'm actually going to remove a little bit and then I'm going to start blending it out. I actually think on the cheek this looks not coral, but in fact that beautiful like chili pepper terracotta color. It is just so beautiful, and I think it suits my undertones, the undertones of my skin so well. I adore this blush. I'm sorry to enable you. I know a lot of you have also mentioned that you're very tempted by this color, but it looks similar to other shades, and let me tell you, I don't think this is similar to anything else that I own, even applied on the cheeks. So while I understand the urge of this girl to like knock off a bit of the price, this girl or like a bunch of other people who have ever tried to purchase something from me on Vinted, I just don't understand this like exceptional cheekiness to basically demand you to sell something for almost no money. And I've spoken about this before, but if I'm selling something and it was expensive to begin with, if it was something cheap, obviously I put it up for a low price too, and I don't expect much. But if I'm selling something, although you know what people will do? You will offer something for a really low price and then they will be like, I'll pay you €1. €1 is not even worth my time going to the post office, okay? I will waste so much time packing everything, getting the labels and going to the place where I have to ship it from, because Vinted ships from like really bizarre places. I have to go somewhere that is relatively far to ship the product. It is just not worth my time at all. Then I would rather give it away to someone for free, like to a friend or something. At least the friend will get some satisfaction out of that. But if that's the case for an expensive product, then I just utterly stubbornly refuse to sell it. I would rather have it like rot in my drawers then. I just find that so fucking disrespectful. I don't know how you feel about it. Tell me what your experience with Vinted has been. But also, how beautiful is this shade of blush? I am so happy with it. And I think this shade of blush goes perfectly with the shade Golden Nectar from the original Divine blush release from 2 years ago. So I'm just going to use that to highlight my cheekbones, and then we're going to do the eye makeup using the Nude Allure Quint. You're a bit zoomed in now, so let's do a look with the Nude Allure Quint. Nude Allure is not new at all. It is one of the holiday quints that were released for like Christmas 2022. I originally picked up only Bronze Bliss. I adore Bronze Bliss so much that I went back to get a backup recently when she had a sale offering these quints 50% off. And because she was offering them 50% off and I adore the formula in these quints, I figured I might as well just try Nude Allure. If I don't like it, I can always give it away to a friend. Let me tell you, they will have to pry this out of my cold dead hands. I'm not giving it away to anyone. I adore it. I love it so much because the tones are so much more, you know, flattering for me than I was expecting, because they lean much more like coral, slightly rose goldy than they leaned pink. Like in the original photos, it just seemed so overwhelmingly purple pink, but in real life it is nothing like that. Let me do like a quick swatch for you of the quint, so that you have an idea what kind of shades we are working with. But honestly, there isn't a single shade in here that I don't absolutely adore. And I am so happy that we have a brown matte in here, because this makes the quad so much more user-friendly and versatile for me. So here are quick swatches of the 5 eyeshadows that are present in this quint, and I don't know that swatches are even doing it justice, but this formula is just so special to me. It's so dimensional, it looks so beautiful on the lids. It's not like overly glittery, but it has enough dimension to look really interesting on the lids, and I just find this color story to be so extremely cohesive. The tone of this brown shade, it just works so well with the rest of the shades. Literally, like anything you put on this from this quad on your lids together is going to work perfectly. This brown also has the kind of formula that you can very easily manipulate to have like relatively lower pigmentation. I'm going to grab it on a very fluffy shader brush now. Well, not shader brush, fluffy blender brush now, and I'm going to show you how beautifully you can blend this out to have somewhat lower pigmentation level. So you can just use this brown as your crease shade and also in your outer corners. Hey Nicolaatje!
Ik ga een t-shirt met Spider-Man aandoen.
Ga je een t-shirt met Spider-Man aandoen? Oké. You can see how beautifully it is blending out, and as it is blending out, it is softening the tone enough to look really flattering through the crease. But if you want to, you can definitely give it a punch of color just here in the outer corner where you want the color to be more concentrated. I just absolutely love this eyeshadow, and I have to say, the presence of this eyeshadow and just how cohesive this color story is makes me want to say that in terms of like that aspect, the cohesiveness of the color story, Nude Allure is actually far superior to Bronze Bliss, because I find the grayish black shade in Bronze Bliss to really not be the best pairing for a lot of the other neutral shades that are present in that quint. That might just be my personal stance on that. I've seen a lot of people make beautiful looks incorporating this shade, but for me personally, I would have much rather had some tone of brown than that gray black shade in there, because to me that gray black shade in there makes sense only with Lunar Luxury, but not really with the browny rosy shades. I'm going to apply a little bit of glitter glue before going into the metallic shades. This is just my depotted NYX glitter glue. I find this formula in particular to really work better over a sticky glitter base. If you're hearing some really menacing sounds from outside, that's because the wind is blowing really menacingly and I have to go out and bike in a little bit. That prospect does not fill me with joy. What does fill me with joy though is the two eyeshadows that we're going to apply now. Now when I use this quint, I usually will apply either this shade and this shade on my lid, or this shade and this shade on my lid. Now with today's attire, and I think my personal favorite is applying this like rose goldy brown, just awesome shade, and this beautiful rose gold. This shade in particular, this brown shade, is just making my heart beat so fast. I love it. And something that I have also mentioned before, but I will reiterate again today, to me the formula in these quints works a lot better if you use a flat shader brush, because then you can reveal a lot more of the sparkle and the complexity of these shades. I don't think these are the types of eyeshadows that you want to pack on your lids, because they're very dense and very creamy, and I feel like if you go in with your fingers, you run the risk of applying too much and it's starting to look very textured on the lids. Whereas a brush will beautifully like distribute the product across the lids and at the same time reveal a little bit more of that shine and sparkle. Now I apply this on like about half of my lid, and then I'm going to go into the rose gold shade and apply that on the inner portion of my lid. And just these shades, they work together so harmoniously. And I will keep the inner corner free to apply the like inner corner highlighty shade in there, which is the one over here. That one is probably my least favorite. It's a little bit, that one is in fact a little bit too pink for my taste. I would have preferred if this has more like corally, rose goldy tones to it, then it would have been the absolute perfect finishing touch to this quint. To me, this shade still has a bit more of a strong pink undertone, and that makes it like my least favorite one in here. But even so, it is a beautiful shade. And then I'm going to take the fluffy blender and just blend everything here through the crease so it looks a bit more seamless. And then using my flat shader brush, I'm actually going to go into the brown shade and apply a little bit of that on my lower lashes to complete the look. You can do extremely like fast looks with this palette, and they look just so beautiful, cohesive and glamorous. I can't say enough good things about these quints. And what we are going to do in the very near future is pair the two quints together, because there are a couple of looks that I've done using shades from this together with a couple of shades from Bronze Bliss that I have really enjoyed the final result of. I don't know that the camera is doing full justice to the eyeshadows from these quints. I think you need to stand in a little bit of either artificial lighting or like sunlight to truly appreciate how dimensional and beautiful they are. I just wanted to quickly add on that I've also started using the MAC Stack Mascara, which I purchased recently off of recommendation of Charlotte Holdcroft, because she was praising this mascara for being quite exceptional and one of her favorite mascaras. And I want to withhold from giving final thoughts on this mascara just yet, because I've only only opened it last week, and to me a mascara needs to be open for at least 2 weeks before it has settled into its final form, so to say. So far I think it is a beautiful mascara. I think it performs quite nicely, but it absolutely does not outperform my personal favorite, which is the Kiko Extra Sculpt mascara, and it doesn't outperform it to be almost 4 times as expensive. One thing that really threw me off guard is how interesting and cool the packaging of the Max Stack mascara is, but in that sense the Kiko Extra Sculpt is also pretty cool looking in terms of packaging. So it is a good mascara, it is a solid mascara, but so far I can't really say that it is the next best thing since French fries. As a final touch, I applied Kitten Mischief, one of the luxuriously lucent lipsticks from Lisa Eldridge, which has been another one of my absolute favorites recently, and especially to use with Nude Allure, because it complements the tones of Nude Allure so well, because it resides in the same like corally peachy pink territory. An absolute perfect match made in heaven. I hope that you enjoyed this look. Thank you so much for watching. I hope we see each other again very soon. I think you might actually see this video after the Lisa Eldridge Velvet Bloom video, because I will not have time to edit today or tomorrow for that matter. And if I film with Velvet Bloom tomorrow, then you're probably going to see the demo of Velvet Bloom before you see this video. But anyway, this is completely irrelevant to your life. So thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you thought about this look, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!